What role does masking play in understanding and being aware of someone's identity? And yeah, I will leave it there.
C'est certain que, surtout dans le cadre d'un autisme diagnostiqué tardivement, il y a une réalité qui frappe, c'est qu'on a réussi à naviguer dans un monde qui était peut-être pas nécessairement simple à découvrir pour une personne dont le développement neurologique n'a pas été standard. Alors, c'est très demandant, le camouflage. Ça requiert énormément d'énergie. Il y a des vertus aussi à ça parce que ça permet de se protéger aussi, mais il y a un coût à la protection. Donc tout ce qui peut finalement amener une diminution de cette posture de camouflage va être au profit de chacun des individus dans une relation, parce que le fait qu'on camoufle n'est pas une intention volontaire d'être malhonnête ou de cacher des choses, c'est juste une façon de survivre dans un environnement qui est pour nous moins évident à comprendre. Donc c'est quelque chose dont il faut avoir conscience. Je pense que l'idée, c'est de se fondre un petit peu dans la masse pour pas trop attirer l'attention, pour continuer à se développer, pour continuer à fonctionner. Moi, c'est ce que j'ai réussi à faire avec plus ou moins de succès pendant des années. Mais à un moment, le prix à payer, il faut passer à la caisse. Là, c'est très demandant d'un point de vue fatigue, par exemple. Donc, je pense que la persistance un petit peu des idées reçues et des fantasmes sur à quoi ressemble une personne autiste, ça peut aussi expliquer des fois qu'il y a il y a un sous-diagnostic aussi. En tout cas, moi, je pense que c'est ce que j'ai vécu aussi, et que, comme je le disais, on n'est pas malade en fait. C'est pas une maladie, c'est vraiment juste quelque chose qui requiert plus d'efforts pour nous. Puis je pense particulièrement pour les femmes en fait. Autant je pense pour les hommes, il y a moins de difficultés socialement parlant à être un petit peu plus isolé, bourru, euh, des fois pas parlable. Je pense que pour les femmes, c'est beaucoup plus demandant encore que pour les hommes, cette posture de camouflage. Mais quelle est une réalité partagée par les deux genres, hommes et femmes, c'est clair. Ouais.
Tony, is there anything that you'd like to add about masking and sort of the exhaustion associated and what it means, particularly in the workplace?
Absolutely. So I guess I'll share 2 points. I think one I'd like to share from my personal experience as a highly masking or historically highly masking autistic person, in that I was 30 years old when I was diagnosed. So I had spent 30 years being autistic, not knowing I was autistic, needing to cope and survive in a world that saw my mask and saw maybe at some point some of my challenges or places that I struggled or the differences that I had in communication or social interactions. They were likely more evident when I was much younger, but over time, and this is where a gendered lens is also really important, that girls and women tend to have sort of additional social demands as children. And because of that, sort of my own experience has been that I learned some pretty great skills around communication, but also learned some great masking skills, in that I was able to camouflage and hide my autistic traits for quite some time. And the other piece is that meant that I had to learn how to compensate for things that were a challenge for me instead of getting support. And that, even in the workplace, where I want to add how this related to me in the workplace, is I have worked in the autistic community and in the pan disabilities community for over 10 years. I worked with autistic people, but did not see myself among those autistic people. That was not what my experience was. And a lot of it, my perception, is that it had to do with the fact that the folks that I was working with didn't look like me and didn't share a gendered experience that I had. Then I started meeting some autistic women and started seeing that my masking looked a lot like other autistic women's masking. And it really, really helped me understand my experience. But those are sort of things that while I was sort of going through cycles of burnout, not realizing why I was going through cycles of burnout, once I was able to understand that I was engaging in masking on an ongoing basis, it started making sense why I was burning out all the time and why it just felt chronic, even though, I was doing all of the self-care things we talk about, but I was still struggling. And it wasn't until I was able to identify places where I was masking and be able to feel safe enough to pull that back and start being myself, that I was able to battle that exhaustion and start breaking that cycle of breakout or burnout. And the one point I want to make is that coming to Auticon, before I knew about my own neurodivergence, one of our autistic colleagues said to me, "I don't know where the mask ends and where I start." And that has always sat with me and been sort of something that I think a lot of autistic folks sort of navigate. And so while, we really do a lot of encouraging of folks of, creating environments where masking isn't required, it's also important to know that masking is a survival mechanism. And it's a coping mechanism, and it keeps a lot of neurodivergent and specifically autistic people safe. And so creating environments where folks don't have to do that, and folks like me aren't in cycles of burnout due to needing to mask, those environments are really, really important. And I think we'll get into that in later questions. But while masking is an independent experience and an individual experience, there is a environmental factor, I think, that can truly play a strong part of combating the need to, I guess.